Hello, welcome to another Burgundy with Tweedy video. I did briefly go and sit in a more open spot because it is only 10 minutes from sunset. You're probably already seeing quite gloomy footage as the light is failing here in the woods. But despite it being a Tuesday and a gloomy day in November, someone always comes and sits at the bench right next to mine. A bit of a curveball, is that the right expression? I actually thought I was buying something slightly different. So this is a little bit outside of the normal area of Burgundy I would prefer. I was in Barry Brothers and Rudd the other day when I bought that Rossignol Trappé Gevrey Chambertin, was it Oete Loire? And I spotted this on the shelf and I was mostly attracted to it by the price. It was just shy of £30, which anyone who's spent any time buying any Burgundy, red Burgundy, will know is a rarity to find anything under 30 quid. It's all just really dear Burgundy, isn't it? The compromises that have to be made in order to get there is that it's not a particularly prestigious appellation. The Bourgogne Cote d'Or is, I suppose that would be considered a step up from just Bourgogne Rouge. I mean, it depends what you're buying and which producer it's from and all of those caveats, but generally speaking, that at least means it's either from the Cote de Nuit or from the Cote de Beaune and not some of the other bits of Burgundy which are generally considered a bit less prestigious. So it sort of nudges it up into the more well-regarded bit of Burgundy, but that's still quite a large range, isn't it? The Cote de Nuit is where I tend to buy almost exclusively all of my wine from. I just always seem to prefer it. Whenever I've delved down into the Cote de Beaune, usually it's just a disappointment, and I've never really been able to articulate this very well, but I know what I like, and so I tend to stick to the Cote de Nuit. I think the shelf label here, perhaps I confused it with a shelf label for a different bottle, I think actually suggested that although this is in the Cote d'Or appellation, the fruit was from the Cote de Nuit. I think there was talk of Gevrey Chambertin and stuff, that sort of area. So I snapped this up thinking, great, you know, an under the radar Cote de Nuit wine. But when I actually get this home and read the label on the back, it turns out it is in fact from the Cote de Beaune, and that probably explains why the price is somewhat low. I mean, I think you'd get a bottle for under 30 quid in London, in St James's, that comes from the Cote de Nuit. It just seems a bit too good to be true, doesn't it? So this will be a wine from the Cote de Beaune, not a part of Burgundy I tend to drink from very often. I know there'll be those of you in the comments who will scoff at this and not understand my strange prejudice, but there you go, I'm drinking it. You know, no one else has to drink wine I'm drinking, it's just me. I drink what I want to drink. That is the underlying premise of this channel. The other caveat with this is that it is a 2023 vintage. This is a vintage that I practically know nothing of yet because I've been able to find a good supply of 2022s, and why would you therefore forge ahead to 2023? So it's almost certainly going to be pretty young, isn't it? But generally speaking, I think the stuff that is sold in the shop, BBR shop in London, there is an underlying implication that it is ready to drink. They would always say, yes, it would be better if you let it age for a bit longer. So that was a lot of blurb, wasn't it? The light is fading, so I should just open this up. Note the lack of any foil cap here. Don't know if that's another signifier that this is a budget wine. There does seem to be a sort of hierarchy in terms of how the top of the bottle is covered, isn't there? This is obviously the cheapest version, no covering at all. And then one up from that you have a foil cap, as you often see. One up from that is that sort of half waxed seal. You can sometimes see those on bottles where it just covers the topmost bit of the bottle. And then the real luxury version is the sort of full waxed seal, which I don't think it has any technical reason other than the winemaker signaling to you that they think the wine ought to be expensive. Well, the light here is awful, it is fading, but I think I get a sense that is on the pale side. That looks slightly lighter to me. Oh, I forgot to say who actually makes this for them. It's Benjamin Leroux. I think that's a producer I've had something from before, Benjamin Leroux, possibly, not sure. And there was talk in the blurb on the back of notes of black cherry and violet, and that all sounded very appealing. You know, two of my favourite things to find in Burgundy. So can I actually spot them, detect them? Well, first nose from that, something very different from what I'm used to. Definitely not a style of Burgundian nose that I'm familiar with. I mean, there is something dark and brooding there, and perhaps that's what they're alluding to with the black cherry notes, but it's not cherry as I know it. Yeah, that's to be honest, doesn't smell like Burgundy at all. Doesn't smell like Burgundian red Pinot Noir at all at the moment. Perhaps with a swirl this will return to more familiar territory. Okay, a little bit more familiar now, so weird to begin with. Perhaps that's partly because this is also very young. It's only 2 years old. A little bit more of a sort of, I would say more red fruit, possibly red cherry, possibly red berry sort of aromas there after a swirl. Still that, I can't even put my finger on that. Other character there, which is really quite different from anything I'm familiar with in Burgundy. And I really don't know how to describe that. I'm not sure it's even fruit. It's almost very slightly reminiscent of something like licorice, but it's not straightforward licorice. This may not be a particularly fruitful set of, if you pardon the pun, it may not be a particularly fruitful set of tasting notes. But I'm so off-piste here, so out of my comfort zone, that I lack the vocabulary to adequately describe this. Perhaps I should just give this a sip and maybe things will become clear. Well, I think that light colour, I believe it's slightly pale. To me it looks slightly pale. Translates a bit to the palate there. It's sort of on the lighter side. It's certainly not deep and rich and intense. It's a sort of vaguely pleasant, fruity sort of palate. But wow, again, I'm struggling to come up with the words to describe this. Very, very different. I think there is something kind of floral-ish on the nose, but really, to me, does not give a sense of violet. I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with what violet smells like. That is floral, but something completely out of the sphere of the usual rose and violet. I mean, it's a bit like the smell, the generic collective smell of flowers in a florist. It's that sort of smell. And there's something on the nose that gives a sense of something savoury. I'm all over the place here. I'm thinking, I don't know, sausages, the skins from baked potatoes. I suppose something slightly earthy, something slightly sous-bois there maybe. But black cherries and violet, no. Really not presenting as that to me. Maybe there's a little bit of that on the palate. Possibly a bit of black cherry, but there's not a huge amount of fruit. It's quite dry. It's quite tart, quite acidic actually, despite that lack of fruit or my inability to detect what that fruit is. Slightly sort of abrasive mouthfeel there. I suppose that's tannins. There might be a little bit of mineral underpinning to that, but I'm pretty sure everyone will think I'm completely nuts. Very few people will see this massive divide between the Cote de Nuit and the Cote de Beaune. There clearly is something different, otherwise there wouldn't be two names for them. But I often get this kind of sensation from Cote de Beaune wines, this sort of slight abrasiveness, this slight roughness around the edges. Whereas in the Cote de Nuit, I look for things like richness, elegance, concentration, really nice fruit expression in the case of producers like Gavinier. When I come to Cote de Beaune, I often find wines that are sort of just a bit more rough around the edges. I can't think of any nicer way to say it. I know, you know, I'm comparing a very lowly appellation here with, I've recently been having village level Cote de Nuit wines, so you know, a fairer comparison would probably be a respected village level wine from the Cote de Beaune. But perhaps some of this is just youth. Perhaps it's just that this wine is really not quite ready yet, but it has this sort of, rough around the edges, abrasiveness about it. I'm not getting any of the things that I particularly love about Burgundy, the concentration, the intensity, the richness, the wonderful ripe fruit and all that kind of stuff, which signifies an enjoyable red Burgundy to me, is absent here. Yeah, I think nosing that a bit more, it is slightly reminiscent to me of some English still red Pinot Noirs that often tend to be sold very, very young, and they need significant aging to really come into their own. And yeah, it does have a bit of that. Picking that up now, that youthful Pinot Noir note is starting to emerge. Sometimes that expresses to me as menthol. It's not really doing it here, but it has this, really hard to describe, this kind of unfermented fruit juice quality to it on the nose. It smells like grape juice, not like wine, and that often seems to happen. It's like Schlur. grape juice in a carton that is unfermented, which is ridiculous because the fermentation has already happened when it's in the bottle. It's not like there's a secondary fermentation. In still red wine, you absolutely don't want that. And yet, sometimes to me, very young red Pinot Noir wines give this this air of basically fruit juice. Well, this is a hot mess of a video, isn't it? What a nightmare this is going to be to edit. Perhaps I just won't bother.